Okay, we are recording now and ready. Welcome. Emanuel Chris Welch is the Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives. He is the first Black Speaker of the Illinois House. And Speaker Welch, how do you stand nationally? Are there other currently Black speakers of the House in other states?
There are currently other Black speakers, but I do think the number is very small, so we can certainly do better.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
It only took Illinois 200 plus years to elect a Black speaker. I'm certainly hoping that we can elect others down the road.
Well, better late than never, I guess.
That's right.
And also your background is in education. You were the school board president of the Proviso Township High School, District 209, Board of Education, and also still a school attorney as well.
That's right. I spent 12 years on my local school board, Ray, and 10 of those years as the board president. And, I left the board to become a state representative in 2013. And so far, it's been 6 months as speaker. I can tell you that speaker is a lot easier than being the board president.
Why is that?
Oh, just I can go to the grocery store or restaurant and not be bothered when I return from Springfield. When you're the president of the school board, they get you at the grocery store, the restaurant, they come knock on your door. You can't seem to leave that job.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for being here. My first question, I was listening to Barack Obama's book, A Promised Land, and he tells a story about being a brand new Illinois state senator way back in the day. And he had just given this amazing speech, and the Republican Senate President, Pate Phillip, had gone up to him afterwards and complimented him on this beautiful, impassioned speech. He said he may even have changed some minds, but he didn't change a single vote. And I think the inference there was that there's a lot that goes into legislating. There's negotiations, there's horse trading, deal making, compromises, and all the other things that go on behind the scenes. So given all those dynamics, how important is it for educational leaders, for school leaders, to be involved in advocating for education-related legislation?
Yeah, that's a great quote, Ray. I'm very familiar with that book and that quote, and it's so true. And what people have to realize is by the time something is on the board, what I like to say, that it's being debated on the floor of the House or the Senate, it's already gone through a process. And so typically a lawmaker will not even call the bill for a vote or put it on the board unless they've counted their votes. And one of the rules in this business is know how to count. And if you know how to count and you hit your numbers is when you call your bill. So most of the time at that point, it's just theater. So you're really going to change any votes. You may change some minds, but you're not going to change votes. And that's because people have made commitments to other legislators. They've made commitments to constituents at home. They've made commitments to interest groups like educators. And so it's important to work a bill from the beginning and until the very end. It's very rare, though, that you're going to get someone to change their vote once that bill is up on the board.
Okay. So really that speaks to the timing of not only the content of the communication, but the timing of it. And are you suggesting then that to really be effective, school people need to be in early with their legislators in terms of getting information to them?
That's right. One of the things that I like to tell people is a book that I actually like very much was written by another former Illinois senator, Illinois Senate President, Phil Rock, saying, "No one calls to say hello." And I think it's important that people call and don't have an ask. I think it's important that people get to know their local legislators. Go down to their office, ask them to have coffee, just get to know them, let them get to know you. If you're an educator, especially, let them get to know you as an educator, someone who lives in their district and may be a subject matter expert and could be someone they rely on from time to time. So that when an issue that's important to you comes up and you reach out to that local legislator and you have an opinion on it, guess who they're going to lean on and count on to help them make a decision on how they should vote on that bill. It's someone that you've developed a relationship with and they can trust you. And so I tell people all the time, don't have an ask, right away. Go and get to know them, volunteer in their offices, just meet them once or twice a year on a regular basis, and just develop a relationship. And you'd be surprised at how impactful you can be because that legislator knows who you are and trusts your opinion.
Given the realities and the demands of your schedule and your days, do you find yourself or other legislators reaching out to those people with whom you have a relationship established, or is it just you're just bombarded with inputs and communication coming from without?
Well, I think legislators do it in various ways. I certainly do it in various ways. I get emails, I get calls, I get text messages from people that I know that clearly I know them because they have my personal cell number. But there are times when I'm aware of an issue and I know of the subject matter expert in my area that I rely on, and I'll text them, hey, are you aware of this bill? What do you think? The folks in my district tend to have pretty good access to me, whether they're school officials, village officials, you name it. I pride myself on accessibility. So I tell them, don't assume that I'm aware of the 6,000 pieces of legislation that may come before us. If there's an issue that you're aware of that's important, please reach out and let me know. So people will text you. I just ask them, don't wait to text me until the bill is on the board. Try to catch me a little bit earlier in the process, because if it's on the board, that train has left the station.
Yeah. So what is the most effective type of communication? What's your preference?
Well, I think my preference is, I'm an in-person guy. And I think that's why COVID was so hard. I like, this Zooming thing. It's definitely easy and accessible and makes it easy to go to your next meeting without having to get in your car. But I still think that you can't underestimate the value of in-person relationship building. And so, we're going to be past the pandemic at some point. We're in stage 5 here in Illinois. Go have coffee, just, have a conversation, go volunteer at an event. I'm very big at hosting events in my district. Stop by an event and just have a casual conversation and say hi. That's very, very impactful, not just with me, but other legislators. But of course, you can always call, schedule a meeting in the office, bring materials that you think they should read. I do think in-person is effective. When we're in session, when we're on the go and it's constant, you have to be mindful of that person's time. So maybe a quick phone call or shooting that text does work. But again, that counts on getting to know your legislator. That's going to be effective.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Sometimes professional associations provide their members with a template or a script for a phone call or an email. How effective are those boilerplate messages? Do those matter?
Not at all. In fact, sometimes they irritate legislators because you'll get 2,000 of those to clog your mail all at once. All of a sudden, your phone is just going nuts because you're getting 2,000 boilerplate emails that all say the same thing. And then most of the time, it's from people that don't even live in your district. All politics is local. You want to hear from people in your districts. And so if you're getting 2,000 boilerplate emails from people that don't even live in your district, all that's going to do is irritate you. People that can't vote for you. It's important that we hear from the people that actually vote for us to send us to do these jobs, right? And so that's why, I think it's extremely important that folks get to know their local legislators and start there. I'm not going to say never ever write a legislator and send one of those boilerplate emails, but I think on a scale of effectiveness, they're at the very bottom.
What about just phone calls to kind of log in your position on legislations without even speaking to you, just saying, vote yes on this piece?
Again, my office tracks things like that, but that tends to happen when some trade association or someone asks their members to put calls in, and then all of a sudden you're getting 2,000 phone calls to flood your office. And when my office is asking them where they're from, they won't even tell you where they're from, which in our book, that means they're not from the district. And so if you're going to call your local legislator, your legislator, or call a legislator's office, you might be more effective if you're from their district. And so, I treat those very similar to the mass emails.
Mhm. Back to the professional association. Sometimes they join together, the school boards people, the superintendents, the principals, the school business officials, and they form an alliance. Does that added the larger group add some leverage to the political muscle? Do they speak with a louder voice when they come to a legislator in that fashion?
Trade associations and groups all have a voice. And so when they come together in a coalition, that voice gets louder. And you win by addition. You win when you organize. When you organize, you win. And so if you are able to build coalitions that share some similar thoughts, that is extremely effective. I'm a big builder of coalitions when it comes to an issue. And I try to build my coalitions before an issue really gets out there, so that by the time it's out there, it picks up steam pretty quickly. And so that can be very effective, because, the associations do have a reputation, and many of them are well respected in the education space. And when all of them come together to tell you that a bill is good or a bill is bad, legislators typically listen.
You had mentioned the advantage of getting involved, volunteering for your local legislator, and that. Kind of getting to the money issue. In one of my former districts where I was superintendent, I always participated in the mayor's golf outing every summer. And then one day I found my name in the paper because I had donated $100 to the mayor's campaign for this golf outing. And the Better Government Association was doing a big feature about school people trying to buy political influence. And apparently they thought $100 was going to get me far. How important is it for school leaders to show support, financial support in legislators' campaigns?
Well, that's an unfair article by a Better Government Association, because I'm sure they mentioned the unions that donate thousands of dollars to elected officials' campaigns as well. I'm sure they offered balance in that story, right? The point I'm making, though, is that, as long as donations are legal and people are reporting them properly, I don't see anything wrong with that. However, I do think that it's extremely important to get to know your legislator, not even have an ask. I think outside of a fundraising space, no one has an ask, the legislator or the constituent. Just sit down, get to know each other. If you develop a relationship that leads you to a point where you feel good about a particular elected official, and you support their policies and positions, and you think they're great in office, I would encourage you to support them, to help keep them there, because elections get expensive. But I don't think you should stay away from them because you're afraid of some organization that's going to write a story.
Yeah. You had mentioned some of the techniques that just don't work for you and aren't very effective. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're contacting legislators?
Ray, that's a great question. And I think some of the biggest mistakes is, people don't appreciate a legislator's time, especially if they're in session. You have to be mindful of how much time they have, which is very little. So I tell people to practice their elevator speech, because that's about as much time as you have. I'll have folks come to me in the Capitol and I say, can you walk with me? So based on where I'm walking from, if I'm walking from my office to another office, from my office to the floor, you got about 2 minutes, 3 minutes to give me your spiel. Have a fact sheet. And sometimes people come with those fact sheets and they're so cluttered that, all that's going to do is end up in the G file. Get a nice little fact sheet that's not so cluttered. It has some nice 3 or 4 bullets that makes your pitch as easy as that elevator speech. And be courteous, be kind. There's a lot of advocates that'll be very rude and think that that's how they're going to get their message across. And so I would say, be mindful of their time. Give them a fact sheet that's not busy, that's easy to read. and be courteous and kind. And I think you get a lot more with honey than you do with vinegar.
Kind of along those lines of being courteous and considerate, how often do you get thank yous? How often do you get the follow-ups after legislation's been passed or rejected or whatever?
The ones who know how this works, you get them a lot. You really do. And I've got a stack of them here in the office because I love getting those thank you notes, particularly the handwritten cursive writing. They took the time to thank you for your work. That's just so important to do that. I just signed thank you notes for things that people did for me, and just think about how you want to be treated. And if you ask someone for something and they do it, thank them for it, even if it's just thanking them for taking the time to meet with you.
Yeah. Last question I'll ask is there anything else that school people need to know about contacting legislators and advocating for public policy that I just failed to ask?
Oh, Ray, I think you've been very thorough. And I think that, typically school folks, just like I was for 12 years, are very passionate about their issue. And sometimes that passion can really make you emotional about it. I would always say, just be kind, courteous, and professional, and considerate of that lawmaker's time, and you'll be surprised at how effective you are. And please take some time to to know your local legislator, the one that you vote for at the ballot box, and don't have an ask, because when you do go to them, they're going to count on you because they know you're an expert in that area.
Thank you so much, Speaker Welch. I want to extend an invitation when you're driving south and east, come visit us at Eastern Kentucky University. We'd love to take you on a tour.
Ray, I'm going to take you up on that, Doc. I appreciate you, man. We miss you here in Illinois.
That's a deal. I look forward to maintaining these contacts. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful content, wonderful information. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. God bless. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.